Alright, you lot, welcome back. We are continuing our journey down the New Year preview live road. So that's a weird way to phrase that. Anyway, as promised, we're doing the Horus Heresy stuff today, then there'll be Blood Bowl tomorrow. But before that, the first of what will end up being many reminders for something that's happening at the end of the month. See, last year I became an ambassador for Campaign Against Living Miserably, suicide prevention charity that I've worked with before, and last year we did Jingle Jam. In fact, 2 years in a row we've done fundraising streams for Calm during Jingle Jam. However, to my extreme disappointment, I managed to have a god-awful migraine on the last weekend of Jingle Jam, which meant our third Calm charity stream did not go ahead. I just physically wasn't able to do it, which honestly really upset me, because, you know, it was the first charity thing that I'd done since becoming an ambassador for Calm. It felt very important that we did those streams, and we weren't able to do all three. But at the end of the month, the 31st of January, a Saturday, by the way, time is yet to be decided. I'm trying to work out whether to do an all-day thing or whether to start it in the evening. We'll be working more on this thing. I'm still not really sure what we're calling this. It's an absolute mess, I know that for sure, but we will continue to work on this, and there will be a new fundraiser that I'm going to put up on Tiltify, and so we will continue fundraising for Calm. Now the thing is, this will be the first of basically a stream every month. I want every single month for us to do a fundraising stream for Calm, for charity, and January will be the first one, and it'll also be a kind of a way to round out what we did during Jingle Jam. Now, unofficially, I'm thinking we call it Jingle Jan. Someone did say that last year when I was like, we're not going to be able to do it, and it's a good name. The thing is, Jingle Jam is not a Calm-like property or anything, so there's maybe a little bit of legal stuff to avoid there, but that's what we're going to do at the end of the month. We're also going to continue with the giveaway, so there's a plan to give away, we've got the Saturnine box, we've got the Night Battle Group box, we've got a Spearhead, we've got Farsight, and we've got some Element Games vouchers, which we're still going to give away. It's just it'll happen at the end of this month on the stream that we're doing then, as opposed to before this year, which is what I was hoping to do originally. But we are doing it, it is happening, and this thing, every time I look at it, I'm like, what are we doing here? Yeah, this thing will get more work done on it, and at some point I'm going to have to paint this, and I don't even know where to start, or really what I've done initially. So that's going to be fun, isn't it? Now on to the Horus Heresy stuff, which, largely it was Custodes, new Custodes in fact. There was some big tank action which we will get to, but yeah. There was the announcement of a new battle group, and if you haven't seen these already, you can tell just by looking at this that there's been some changes. There's been some serious changes to these. They're taller, they're slimmer, they have top knots now, which, well, we'll get to it. So these are the Custodian Guard, right? And for my money, these are mostly better, but with some stuff that is a bit questionable. I'm looking at you, top knots. I'm just going to say it right now. I'm not feeling the top knots on these at all. Overall, I feel like they are closer to your like John Blanche art for a start. Also the Adrian Smith art as well. They feel closer to this than the existing kit does. So if we take a look at the existing kit, I feel like the new ones capture the essence of that art just a little bit better. They're not quite as bulky, clearly, or at least if they are as bulky, the scale has been changed such that the bulk feels more evenly spread out. They do look thinner, but I don't know how much of that is down to the fact that, you know, these the current 40k Custodian Guard kit are quite squat by comparison. I'm not sure how much of it is down to actually slimming the models down, and how much of it is down to them seemingly being taller. Admittedly, up until seeing these new ones, I didn't necessarily think that the 40k Custodian Guard had aged particularly badly, but I do think that these have a sharpness and a clarity to them, and I think that change to the scale has, it's done them favours, you know? Also, just quick shout out to the Custodian Guard who just said, yes, implant the crest directly into my skull. What a choice. What an insane choice. why? Dedication, I guess? Something? Who knows? Anyway, yeah, I think the armour looks really good. The armour is fantastic. The detail is really nice. The decoration is super clear. I really, really like the repeated patterns on, like, the armour that's going over the midriff there. The repeated logo across that. That looks really, really nice. The symbol of the Imperium there, just sort of stamped in. Things like the variation in what they've got from the waist down. So you've got different bits of decoration. There's different bits of rope, of like loincloth and the like. There is a nice bit of personalisation across each of them, which again feels very appropriate for the Custodes. The shoulders don't seem like vastly different to what's currently available in the 40k side of things. They seem pretty close to that. The legs are very different in a way. I think the legs are definitely longer. They seem a little bit better scaled than the 40k Custodian Guard, but on the 40k Custodian Guard, you've got the decoration on the legs, right? Which is missing entirely on these. Now, I've seen a few people kind of say, you know, why have they basically taken Stormcast legs and stuck them on the lower half of the Custodes? I think part of that is the fact that I've seen plenty of Stormcast Eternals being used as proxies or conversion bases for Custodes. The Stormcast Eternals, especially with the newer versions of them, with a bit of sci-fi cabling and the like, you can kind of make them look like more primitive marks of power armour, which is in no small part due to the fact that Games Workshop, you know, very severely altered the way that Stormcast Eternals actually look. With that being said, I don't think that those legs just look like Stormcast legs. There is like extra stuff to them. There are elements to them that I think separates them out quite nicely. And I'm looking at this, and I'm looking at the legs, and I'm not thinking to myself, oh, those look totally plain. I'm more just thinking I don't miss the decoration from the old ones. Like, I don't think it necessarily makes them look worse. I think it just makes them look a bit different. And when I'm looking at these guys, okay, they've got some extra decoration on the knees there, or across the greaves, fine. I'm looking at these, they don't have that, but the overall, like, stature of the model and the overall level of detail and decoration means that I'm not missing it, you know? I'm not looking at it and going, well, that's just totally ruined it because it's not there. I'm not really seeing that at all. I think these models flow really nicely, and I don't think extra decoration on the legs is really going to add much to them. So yeah, for me, it's just not that big a deal, you know? Two of the things that I'm not really feeling with these is the helmet and the Guardian Spear. And I think the helmet, it's purely down to the top knot. Like, the way the hair is elevated above the top of the helmet, I just don't like it very much. I think it's a little bit unnecessary. I don't know if it adds anything to it. It just makes the head look even taller than it would do otherwise. And the Custodes already looked like they had really tall heads because of their, you know, iconic sort of conical helms. I don't think it adds much, and I think it just gives an extra layer of, god damn, those helmets are, you know, comedically large. When you look at the artwork and stuff, there's maybe a little bit of a top knot there, like just a little bit of something between the hair and the helmet, but it's not that severe. It's not that big. It kind of spoils the flow of it for me a little bit. Not necessarily a deal breaker, but just something that I would be tempted to, I mean, really just snip off. It's something that you could change super easily. You just snip the intervening bits between, you know, where the hair is coming out on the top of the helmet, and you'd be totally fine. But it's an interesting choice that I'm not fully on board with. The other thing is the Guardian Spears. Now, the Guardian Spears is kind of interesting because I think that whole trigger mechanism thing looks clunky as anything, right? It works. It's mechanical. You can see how it functions. It's a very clear visual indicator of this is the weapon. This is how the weapon works. Like, you can't mistake how they fire that thing. You just know from looking at it. Clearly, you pull the trigger, you shoot someone. Easy peasy. It's a very, very, like, clear piece of design. At the same time, this is a spear and a gun in one, right? But with the trigger sort of mechanism on the 40k versions, it ends up being super bulky. So you have this huge section in the middle of the haft that is essentially unusable. Like, you can't grip it. You can't hold it. The actual grips for the weapon feel like it limits how they would be able to wield it. Which, you know, suspension of disbelief, all that stuff, that's totally fine. The Guardian Spears that the Horus Heresy ones now have no obvious trigger at all, which is both better and worse, right? So it's better because it feels like they are able to utilise the full, you know, range of the haft of the spear. They are able to utilise all of that because you don't have a gigantic trigger mechanism taking up, you know, 2/3 or, you know, whatever space it might be. I mean, 2/3 is maybe a bit of an exaggeration. Is it? Is 2/3 an exaggeration? Maybe a little bit, but not by much. Whereas here, it looks like you have all of that room to play with, which I think is way better design for the spear side of things. The downside is that it now becomes far less obvious as to how the spear actually fires, so you lose that kind of immediate, okay, well, I know how that works. Which, you know, you don't always need. It's not the end of the world. But it is something that this is kind of lacking in a way. So it's like you kind of... I feel like the function of the gun has been made less clear by making the function of the spear way better. On the other hand, even though the mechanism for firing it might not be obvious anymore, I think there's enough there to kind of make a bit of an inference of your own. So my assumption would be that due to the way it's separated halfway down, firing the gun would be a case of twisting the lower half. I feel like that's mentioned somewhere. That feels like kind of how that would work to me. That plus you've also got the section coming out the back of the bolter that looks to be the thing that generates the power field for the blade. It sort of looks like there's a little button on one of them, but I don't know whether that is a little button or whether that is just a little bit of extra detail that kind of looks like a button. Either way, the gun section has become less clear, but the spear section has become more clear. So it's like a weird... This is better, but it's also slightly more confusing. And I guess it's whether it being slightly better overrides it being slightly more confusing, or vice versa for you personally, right? The actual blades themselves look a little bit more precarious for me. I mean, that looks pretty chunky, but I do think that just looks far more sleek and elegant. And Custodes, I feel like sleek and elegant is more appropriate, isn't it? At the end of the day, I mean, a spear that's also a gun has never felt like the most sensible weapon to begin with, so I'm not that fussed, but I don't know, it's just an interesting change, you know? We also have the Sentinels as well, which are the sword and board version, and, I mean, they look good. I'm not sure about the shields, but then again, I'm not sure about the shields on the 40k versions either. It's fine, it's okay, it's just never been something that I've really got on with a huge amount. I have used the shields in the 40k kit before for other stuff, just because it felt like it needed something a bit silly, but it's not my favourite design. The swords I really like. The swords look very cool. Again, it helps that the blades aren't like comedy thick and large like the ones on the 40k ones. Like it definitely makes a big difference, I feel, having a blade that looks not ripped straight out of World of Warcraft, which is something that I think the other ones kind of have that problem for me. But again, all subjective, all personal stuff in it. Now, it does say here in the article that, you know, they would also make brilliant inclusions as a Custodian Guard in a Warhammer 40,000 Adeptus Custodes force. So they are saying in the article that it, you know, you can use these in 40k, but that hasn't stopped a metric shed load of questions from people going, well, can I use these or not? Which, honestly, fair. You know, people have been burned in the past when it comes to Games Workshop saying, yeah, you can totally use this in 40k, and then going, actually, no. I mean, how many people bought things like Contemptors and Leviathans to play in 40k, and then they got shunted over to Legends because they wanted to, like, Games Workshop wanted to delineate what is from what system a lot more than they did previously. I can understand why people are going, okay, yeah, but can I actually use this in 40k, or is it going to disappear? It's a genuine and sensible fear to have, because what if they just decided, actually, no, we've decided now that if you're not using the 40k ones, then, you know, if you go to a GW official tournament or something, oh, sorry, these are the wrong Custodian Guard, you can't use these in 40k. they've made it clear in the article, but I understand why the suspicion is there, because been burnt before. Now, we also have Grav-tanks of various types, the names of which I can never remember. So there's the Caladius Annihilator Grav-tank, and you're thinking, well, you say you can't remember, but you just remembered that. No, I read it, it's down there. And I quite like the Grav stuff that the Custodians have got, but it's always been just prohibitive in terms of trying to get hold of it. You know, all Forge World, all resin, just so expensive. And, you know, I've put together plenty of Forge World models, especially vehicles, and I don't mean this in a really harsh way, but frankly, for the amount that you pay, quite a lot of what you get is a bit shit. Like, I don't... It seems mean, I know, but it just... Some of the stuff that I've had from Forge World has been so warped and so annoying to deal with, and it's harder to put together than plastic. It just is, because there's no miracle plastic glue where you've got a nice bit of time in between. It's just a bit of a faff, and I'm saying that as, you know, someone who likes the stuff I've had from Forge World. I mean, you know, I've got the big plane up there. I've got my Land Raider whatever over there somewhere. There's plenty of stuff that I've got from them, but the cost combined with the hassle has never really felt worth it. And these going to plastic, I mean, it takes away both of those issues, because they will cost less, or at least they should cost less. I would imagine they will. And also, they're plastic, so they're not as much of a pain in the arse to work with. But their Grav vehicles look really good, and now they're going to be easier to get hold of, and, I mean, this looks like what I remember, and what I remember is thinking, God, that's solid. Wouldn't want to put it together, though. Now it's just, oh, that looks solid. I feel like sometimes it's easy to, you know, forget how good the rear view on some of the Imperium vehicles are. Like, that is a solid rear view on that tank. That looks absolutely grand. It looks so good. It's going to sound like a weird thing to say. I'm a big fan of asymmetry, and yet the symmetrical top-down view there is... Oh, that's nice. That is nice. That is oddly satisfying how nice that is. We also have new Custodes Contemptor Dreadnoughts as well, which... Oh, I mean, it looks so good. It just looks so good. I love me some Dreadnoughts. I absolutely love them. And that is a fancy as hell Dreadnought. I love the decoration, I love the carvings and the filigree. It's just so nicely done. The fact that they have just a much bigger version of like a Guardian Spear is endlessly entertaining. And it looks really nice. It looks really nice. I've always really liked the helmets on these as well, or the heads, I guess, technically. They just look great. They feel chunky and up-armoured, and, oh, it's just so good. Also, the sheer, like, number/variety of weapons, but integrated in a graceful way on these is nice. You've got the... Is it the las fusel that's built into the spear? I can't remember the name of it, but you've got, like, effectively a las weapon built into the close combat weapon, but also built into the wrists. You've got bolt weapons. Like, it's just a very, very cool design. Again, another model as well where the rear view is just really nice. Just looks great. And you've got the sword and board option as well, which, I mean, again, it's the same Dreadnought pretty much, but it's got a massive shield, the design of which I like more than all of the shields that they've had for the new Custodian Guard, and for the ones that are in 40k as well. Like, that shield I just like more. I don't know why, but I do. And the sword has got like a flamer built in as opposed to guns, because of course the Dreadnought's already got guns attached to the wrists, so you don't need to have bolters built into the sword. Instead you can incinerate people, which is awesome, frankly. Also, this is fun. This is a fun thing to note. Best of all though, the posability. Just check out the awesome dynamic poses you can build it in. Well, I mean, I can't right now because I don't have one, but I probably will, yeah. We also have a new shield captain as well, which looks absolutely solid. Now, this does, in many ways, mean that the old shield captain looks even more rubbish than it did before. I never liked this model. I thought this model was kind of naff. I just thought squat and wide, and the proportions of a Votan is not what you should have from, you know, Custodians. That's just not what that should be. And for a while I was like, oh, it's just the angle. But I don't know that it is just the angle, because even rotating the lad around, it doesn't necessarily get better. Maybe it gets a little bit better, but not a huge amount. Not enough. Doesn't get better enough to warrant it for my money. No, not a fan. This, however, looks absolutely solid. It just does. The armour looks great. The pose is boring, but, there's also the shield and the sword, which look actually really nice. The Iron Halo is absolutely quality. Love the way that it's got those little kind of angled spikes coming out of it. Oh, it's just good. It's just real good. Still not a fan of the gap between, the rod between the hair and the top of the helmet, but the rest of the model, it's just very nicely done, I think. See, now that shield, I really like. I'm not sure why I like it so much more than the others, but I do. There's just something very pleasing about it. I'm afraid the bear head has done absolutely nothing to try and convince me to paint a bear-headed anything, apart from maybe the one out of the Red Corsairs box that we saw a couple of days ago. There was a very good bear head in there, but that one, just looks like a school teacher. Looks like a headmistress of a particularly rough school who has just sort of had enough and would prefer to retire, but for some reason feels there's a responsibility to stay and up like the Ofsted score before she can go. I don't know why that is the vibe I'm getting, but that's the vibe I'm getting. Also, insane cloak. Great cloak. Love that cloak. Very nice. Very, very nice. I like the way that it's been incorporated into resting on the scenery, because it looks really cool. I also don't like that, because it means replacing that scenery with something else is going to make the cloak look weird. So, bit of cognitive dissonance there. Now, I've also got the Venatari as well, which look absolutely fantastic. And, if you are a Blood Angels player and you have been missing the wings on your Sanguinary Guard, then good news, because they have released wings that I think would be pretty perfect for those. If you're actually playing Custodes, congratulations, this is a very nice looking unit. I think, again, it feels like the scaling is changed a little bit from the Forge World ones. I really like the wings. The wings do look excellent. The jump packs look really nice. The lighter version of those Guardian Spears is pretty neat as well. Not a, flying stand in sight, but a lot of leaping off / landing on rubble, which is, it's fine. I really do like these kind of reduced armour Custodes. Like, the fact that you've still got the majority of the protection, but they are clearly designed to be more lithe, more light, built for manoeuvrability and fast deployment. I really like it. It looks good. They are simplified, but they're not boring, which, that's the way to do it, right? Also, their lightweight shields are very cool. There's something about the shape of them that just looks really nice. Also, it looks like you could absolutely obliterate someone by punching them with it, which is always a bonus. Now, there's also another Caladius Grav-tank with a twin Iliastus accelerator cannon. Sure. Again, it's the same as the other one, but it's got a different turret, and the turret looks good, and the guns look good, and the vehicle already looked good, so yeah, it looks good. Again, in plastic, along with this, the Coronis Grav Carrier, which I don't like quite as much as the Caladius, but it's still cool. The fact is, I'm never as big a fan of troop transports as I am of just full-on tanks. So, there's a challenge for it to overcome there, in that it's designed to move people around and not just shoot things. And as such, it just doesn't quite hit the same for me. But I do still like it. It does have a very cool side profile, though, so it's got that going for it. Now, obviously, there's the Liber Custodes as well, which is going to come out, and that's pretty much the lot, really. We'll also have a blast through these tanks that are on the way for Horus Heresy, starting with the Glaive Super Heavy Special Weapons Tank. What a title. I mean, it looks great. It's the Glaive. I mean, this is going to be quite quick, because I like all of these tanks. They are silly. They're silly, they're ridiculous, they are covered in guns, and as such, I'm a big fan. I mean, I literally just said that, the troop carriers don't do it for me as much as the thing that is designed to just sit there and shoot stuff, and this is a thing that's designed to sit there and shoot stuff. So, yeah, it's comedically large as well, which, it's just all bonuses. It's a stupid vehicle. There's also a new Whirlwind Missile Tank. I really like this little thing. I mean, it just looks very fun. It's very cool. There's a bit of, retro joy to the overall, just the Deimos Rhino in general. But then to have something that looks relatively, what's the word, relatively real world, I guess, just plonked on the top of it, I quite like it. It's a fun model. Like, that missile launcher is just pretty cool. I do want one, but I want to take that and put it on something else. Actually, no, I want to take like 4 of those and put them on something else, which economically doesn't seem viable, but I'm pretty sure given enough time there might be something that shows up that is very similar to that could, for instance, be 3D printed. So maybe just keep an eye out for that instead, eh? But yeah, it's a fun little tank. The missile launcher looks great. All in favour. There's also going to be the Journal Tactica for super heavy tanks. And don't get excited, that's just a promotional image. That's not a box that they're coming out with as far as I'm aware. Now, it would be quite the move if it was, but it doesn't seem like it is. It seems like that's just a, oh look, there's a bunch of cool tanks, as opposed to, oh look, here's something for you to purchase. I bet people would though. I bet people would buy that. I bet they absolutely would buy that. And by people, I of course potentially mean me. Actually, no, I don't think I would, simply because I don't have this. I don't know where I'd put it. Like, all of those shelves are full. All of those shelves are full, and that's after moving a bunch of stuff around and putting them in boxes. I've got like a tower of the really useful boxes in the corner, full of stuff as well. I simply don't have. I need a bigger house, but that's not really viable. So maybe I wouldn't buy it. Maybe I wouldn't. All right, let's have a little chat about the Custodes then. So I'm trying to think of a good way of doing this. I don't have any notes in front of me, which is probably a bad idea because this is probably going to be a rambly, horrible mess. But then that also describes most of my videos anyway, so it's not like you're not used to it. Yeah, so the change to the Custodes, which personally I feel is a change. I know there is a line of thinking that it's actually not, because if you read between the lines in various codexes and background and fluff and such, there's nothing to suggest that they couldn't have been, but then also there's the line in the codex that says that they're taken from noble sons, all of that stuff. For me, Games Workshop will do what Games Workshop thinks will earn them more money. That is the bottom line. I'm very much of the opinion that when they make changes, even changes that please or displease people, the overriding feeling is they think this is going to earn them more. Now, whether that is true or not, I mean, that remains to be seen. I would argue that some of the things that they've done that have been hugely unpopular, like the introduction of Primaris, which, let's be honest, a lot of people very, very unhappy about that. Very, very unhappy. A lot of talk of just quitting the hobby. I'm not buying all my Space Marines again. They can get rid of this. I hate it. It looks too. It doesn't look like 40k. All these arguments filtered around for quite a while, and I realise that saying that, you know, the Primaris thing has been a success does rub people up the wrong way. I know that annoys people. That doesn't stop it being true. Like, no matter how much you hate Primaris, or dislike Primaris, or don't care about Primaris, the fact is they do sell incredibly well, and yes, Games Workshop has partially achieved that by removing other options, but for a while they didn't do that by removing other options, and for a while people still bought them. And now those other options are gone, and I don't want them gone either, because frankly box noughts are the best, and now there is a significant lack of them, which sucks. But when it comes to that change, no matter how unpopular it seemed, we are however many years down the line, and that range has only got bigger and bigger, and people have only bought more and more. Now, at the time, you could have easily said, well, this is what's going to kill Games Workshop. That simply hasn't happened. So when it comes to even decisions that look like they are hugely controversial, and it looks like it's going to cause a massive issue for them, I mean, the last however many years, they have had a pretty decent track record of selling when they want to sell and making changes that have resulted in more sales. Now, when it comes to the way that this change has been implemented, I don't know, I just wish they'd do something fun with stuff like this. That's my main thought. That's my main feeling, is just there are so many wasted opportunities. There are so many things that could be done with changes like this to, you know, have a story. Like, actually have a story. Actually write something that is enjoyable to read. I mean, you could say, okay, but a tweet gets the point across. It does. And it's also not a fun way to interact with the hobby. I mean, that's probably also affected on my part by taking a massive step back from how much I use social media. I barely touch it in any capacity anymore. It's mostly just to notify you lot of when videos go up and stuff. But I don't know. There's so many examples of changes. Like even like again, going back to the introduction of Primaris, they introduced this sweeping change, this massive change to the universe. And they actually developed the story. They moved things. They did stuff. And yes, it might not have gone down the best, but at least it was something. It was treated as something. It was something significant. Even the bits that weren't that significant got a little bit of attention. They got a little bit of love. But even within that overarching shift, there were things that were just wasted and squandered. So when you look at things like the Dark Angels, not being a big fan of Primaris, and for a minute there it was like, oh my god, are we going to see an actual Imperial Civil War? Like a big one? That would be pretty cool. You know, they'd have to make the Dark Angels loyalists again at the end. But then they just dropped it and they just went, no, they're fine with it now. And again, wasted opportunity. Things like the Rogal Dawn being introduced in much the same way as this change to the Custodes, just, this has always been around. This is just how this was. Like, you had the Rogal Dawn. It's been around for ages. Don't worry about it. You've just never seen one. It's never been mentioned either. But it is there. And now you can buy one. Again, that is an established way in which Games Workshop changes the lore. It's an established way in which they retcon stuff. It's still not fun. It's still not like, I don't get any satisfaction or joy out of it. I'm just like, alright, well, I guess that's that now. It might be an easy way to do things, but quite often the easy way to change or alter or enhance a narrative isn't necessarily the most fun way for the people who are consuming it, right? And I would say that this change falls under that for me. Like, making it some sort of development, making it some sort of... I mean, even couching it in the idea of the Imperium is progressing technologically, that now, having been able to change what was done to create Space Marines, now even the Emperor's like most perfect work in the form of the Custodes has been altered. That would open up really fun doors for future developments, and that would make, you know, that would set a precedent for what could be very interesting and fun things further down the line. But they didn't do that. They just said it's always been like that, and no matter how many times they use that, I'm never going to sit there and be like, this is fun and satisfying, thank you, because I just don't find that fun and satisfying. There's also the idea of, like, I've seen a lot of people say, well, this takes the focus away from Sisters of Silence. I don't necessarily think that's true. I think if Games Workshop stops supporting Sisters of Silence, it's got nothing to do with Custodes and everything to do because they don't think that Sisters of Silence make them enough money to warrant the effort. But for me, the difference between, like, when it comes to the Talons of the Emperor, the difference between the Custodes and the Sisters of Silence, it being, you know, one is an all-boys club, one's an all-girls club, that part of it, yes. But I would suggest that there's more interesting differences to look at than just that. And for me, the more interesting thing is the difference between, like, engineered greatness and, like, natural greatness. So when you look at a Custodes, all the things that makes them special, that comes from being tinkered with from birth. You know, taken as an infant and rewritten from the ground up to be a genetic marvel that is capable of insane speed and strength and intelligence, etc., etc. It is literally the whole thing of everything that was special about you came out of a tube. It's literally that. It is actually that. By contrast, the Sisters of Silence, the thing that makes them special is something they're born with. It's not a genetic modification. It's not them being tinkered with. It's not them being disassembled and then reassembled with all sorts of fancy nonsense and, you know, warp magic or whatever. I mean, we don't really know how Custodes are made, but I'm just assuming. The things that make them special are from birth. They are a completely natural counterpoint to the Custodes' completely unnatural. That's more interesting for me. I mean, I just think that's a cool, like, two sides of the same coin thing. And it's also a little microcosm of, you know, how the Imperium approaches defense anyway, when you've got things like the Imperial Guard, which are just all, you know, base-ass humans running around trying desperately to fight off things considerably stronger and bigger than they are. And they are the ones keeping the vast majority of the Imperium safe by sheer numbers alone. But then you also have the Space Marines, which are once again, you know, engineered, genetically modified, implanted, with the best weapons, the best equipment, and they are also fighting to keep the Imperium going. Two sides of the same coin. Again, I don't think the fact that there are women Custodes really impacts the thing that makes Sisters of Silence special, because the thing that makes Sisters of Silence special isn't just that they are women. I mean, if that was the case, the Sisters of Silence would also be redundant because Sisters of Battle exist. But they're not, because they do different things, and they have a different function, and they have a natural built-in thing that the Sisters of Battle do not have, and, more importantly, that the Custodes do not have. So, when it comes to that, I don't know. It is one facet of the Talons of the Emperor, but I don't think it's the most interesting one. So there you go. Massively unsatisfying for the vast majority of you, I'm absolutely sure. But that's what you get when you come here. A lack of satisfaction, apparently.